everybody. Great that you're joining our session today.
Hello.
Hi.
All right. Today we want to talk to you about the Project A Product School because we see that we actually need a new format to educate and help the product people to grow and develop because they are all struggling a lot of issues in their day-to-day business. Today at the session we have first of all, Dennis here with us, who is a senior product manager in our team and mainly leading this one to something really tangible, providing a lot of content in there, as well as Alexandra, who is a senior QA manager in our team and transitions into product management. So she's very helpful to bounce ideas, helping us to see it from different angles and try to build up a education format that helps many people actually to grow and to develop from that side. All right. So my name is Tamer. I'm CPO at Project A. So not much to tell about this one, but I'm very happy to get started with the presentation. So the stage is yours, Dennis.
Thanks so much, Tamer, for the introduction. Yeah, we just wanted to run you through over the next 30 minutes into why we are actually creating a training program for product managers, and maybe also provide you with some helpful tips along the way that you can take with you right away. But you'll notice when those tips come. We actually wanted to start off with a question just to know kind of who our audience is. So the question is, how many of you actually work in a product team? And there should be a poll coming up immediately for you to answer.
Just a second. Right, here we go.
Give you a couple of seconds to answer that. All right. Do you see the answers already, Tamer?
Yes, I already see the answers. So what do we have? We have around 62% of saying, yes, I do. I work in product management. We have 7 votes, 12% of people saying, are you crazy? How can you do that? And 25% of people say, no, but I really would love to go into this field.
Nice. I think that's a really good audience actually for us. I think for all of you, there's something in this talk. Can you remove? Yeah, perfect. All right. And before we start, though, I actually wanted to just quickly remind you or tell you about how we at Project A actually work, since this is one of the integral parts of why we think we're in a good position to actually create this training program. So each company that we invest in and each company in our portfolio presents a kind of venture case, right? And if the founder wants, he can approach us to help him out or get some capacity for from us to help them in building this venture or supporting, right? So this is usually down to one of 3 cases. Either the venture is scaling too quickly, they just need interims manpower, they can't hire fast enough, basically. Then we jump in as interims, we build something up, and then we hand it over. Or they want to test or build a new product, but they're not sure if they want to hire for this position yet, right? They want to test it out first. So we go in, we test it, and create the results, basically, and then they might think of staffing that position. Or in some cases, and this happens quite frequently with our private equity co-investments, which we do into larger, more established companies, they might also be a bit new to this whole concept of product management as a whole. So what we do there is a lot more also building up teams and also training people already. So how this usually works is we have a portion which is the project work, which has some kind of clearly defined scope or goal, and then we hand over basically our work or our stream to somebody at the venture, because we obviously don't want to build up a dependence on us as an agency, right? So we also support then in the hiring process. And sometimes we extend our involvement also with some coaching in the end. And at the end of it all, we hope that, the venture is happy with what we do and maybe gives us some applause for that as well. Right. But what is it actually that we do? I mean, each project that we join, right, and each company that Project A invests in, for us, it represents actually a new environment that we're allowed to observe, right? We have different team structures in there, different underlying technology, different stage of the company, from very early stage to scale ups, to established ones. We see different business models. We have different founder personalities coming more from business or more from tech. And we also always have a different customer profile in the end, right? And each person in our team is actually doing the same over the course of the years. We usually spend between 3 and 9 months in the ventures, and we obviously exchange these experiences on the projects amongst each other. So after a while, we've actually accumulated all of these cases and all of these different environments that we've seen. And we started noticing some patterns, and we wanted to really bring these patterns down and really be clear about what they are. So first, we noticed some common success factors, right? So in our opinion, or what we see, is that successful companies usually have empowered teams. What do I mean by that? So empowered, the powerless teams are teams that are working on solutions, right? So they usually get their solution ideas from somebody else in the company and say, we need this immediately, and here, press it through, right? Empowered teams, on the other hand, they actually get problems to solve. And there's a key difference in this, because if you're giving your product manager a problem to solve, you're allowing or you're reducing the dependency on individual people who are giving these solutions usually. And what you're also doing is you're creating an increased potential for innovation and good solutions, since these can start coming up from everywhere else in the company, right? So this is an essential part that we see in healthy scaling. Is that the teams really do get empowered. It usually works this way, that at the beginning, the founder is very much involved in the product. And then over time, you need to be able to kind of release that from the founder and hand that power over to the teams. Pro tip, we've introduced this concept of tip time. So after the presentation, if you take away only these tips, then I think it will already be a good outcome for us. So first tip, make sure your product teams get problems to solve instead of solutions to implement. Right. Another pattern that we noticed is that successful companies usually base their decisions on data, and they take research very seriously. Now, this is obviously a very hard topic to solve, right? We see it time and time again that this will be also a topic going on in this talk, that people want to do the research, but they don't really know how or what exactly to do and how to get the time for that. Successful companies also usually make cross-functional collaboration work. So I have a personal example where I was working at one of our portfolio companies, and the sales team, for example, was selling a product that didn't even exist, right? And because of that reason, they wanted, or they thought that they could actually, because they have the direct contact to the customer, dictate also the roadmap or the next steps in the product development. And obviously that's not an ideal situation to be in. So with cross-functional collaboration, there's so much potential to make that healthy, right? But in a lot of cases, it becomes a bit frustrating because everyone is just coming with demands and not really listening to your opinions or following a process, right? On the other hand, also successful companies are usually very close to their customers and understand these needs of the customers really, really well. So something that I always try to do is really build up a relationship to at least some customers in a way that I can reach them on a very short notice. That makes my life a lot easier to not fall in love with my own solutions, but to keep validating them. And oftentimes why product managers don't do that is because they don't have this direct access to the customers. So really building that up from the start, I think, is a super valuable thing to do. They also constantly challenge and improve their processes. So in Scrum, for example, we have this one method of the retrospective, and that's exactly what it's for, right? Methods are there also to be adapted to your specific use case, and so are processes. And as the environment around you changes, obviously your processes need to catch up with that. So taking the time once a month, once every 2 months to do these retros around processes and see how you can design those better is a super valuable thing to do. We also, on the other hand, though, observed some common mistakes that companies often do. So the first is writing specifications without context information. So I had a personal case where I was working at Sender for the first half of this year, and it's an internal tool, and the users were basically trying to filter for multiple items at the same time. Now, I could have just written the user story as a customer. I want to filter for multiple items at the same time, but providing the context information of what the user did before, which is actually copy these out of Excel, these multiple items or order numbers, and copying them into this field allowed the developer to know in which data format is this usually coming. And that obviously also allows the developer himself to think about these solutions more intensely. Also is obviously important that a feature, it doesn't get implemented as a standalone functionality, right? But that it integrates within the rest of the product. And here context information is really super important. So another tip for you to take away is next time you're writing user stories, write a paragraph also about the situation that the user is in while trying to fulfill that story. What is he doing before and what is he going to do immediately after? Oftentimes we also see, especially in B2B contexts, that QA is undervalued, right? In B2C contexts, we see it more and more frequently, that there is a specialized QA professional working in the team. In B2B context, usually this is often overlooked. They think, the software just has to work, doesn't have to be that perfect. But over time, all these little errors can obviously accumulate and then create really a super mess that's going to be hard to clean up and just cause frustration. So QA, very important. We also see companies, especially in a product context, providing strategies without considering the value add for the customer or the user. So data, gathering data is not really a strategic point if we don't know what you're actually going to do with that afterwards. So especially in product context, each strategic point should be very clearly linked to a value add on the user side. And we also see, as a PM, right, you're reading about new way to do things, new methods all the time. And what we see is that oftentimes these methods are just applied pretty much at randomly to solve a problem. But problems and methods, they're linked together, right? Not every method will be able to solve any problem. So it's really important to kind of understand and to keep trying which methods work for which kind of problems. Okay, but what can you actually do with this information, right? Your way of working is not going to change just on the basis of this presentation that we have for you and just based on a couple of words on a couple of slides. So the answer is not much really, right? But I think the key message or what we want, what we think is important is that product managers need to keep learning, right? They need to keep learning, and especially they need to keep learning about how to apply product management. Because learning about product management is actually quite easy. You read blogs, or you can read Inspired by Marty Kagan, and you're going to know what product management is about. And you're probably going to think you have quite a good idea of what it's about as well. But being able to apply product management is actually really hard. So this usually takes really a lifetime of trial and error, and everyone makes mistakes, right? And we believe that actually product leaders need to ensure that their product managers can continually grow and learn, right? And we think that also that's especially possible by learning from the experiences of others. So obviously the key question that we had is, how can we make these experiences that we've observed over all these past years with all these different people, how can we make that more accessible to our ventures?
All right.
And I'm going to hand over to Alex, obviously. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So Dennis shared with you some common mistakes and success we usually see inside of the ventures. But we also wanted to check our assumptions against bias, so to say, outside in, if problems that we encounter in our venture are also applicable across the whole industry. And so we created a survey, and it was filled in by product managers from all over the world, but mainly from Germany, of course. We have received 87 responses. As you can guess, there were product managers with totally different backgrounds: project managers, marketers, QA, developers, business developers, which is quite natural, right? Because product managers often grow organically into their role, having engineering, marketing, sales, or any other background. These are the companies where product managers that fill our survey work. And just to give you a rough idea, only 30% of the people are working at Project A portfolio companies. Around 70% are working in completely different, not related to Project A companies. With this, I want to show you how objective our survey is. One of the questions that we asked in our survey was, what are your everyday tasks at work? After checking the results, we were surprised by the common pattern that we actually noticed, and I want to share it with you. As you can see, around 60% of product managers that responded to the survey are spending way too much time on delivery, especially on team coordination and stakeholder management. Not fun stuff, right? Then they allocate around 30% of their time on product discovery, which is actually extremely important. In few words, it helps to understand users' behaviors, motivations, perspectives, and it helps to build the right product for a right audience that would serve user needs. Finally, only 16% of the time is spent on the product strategies, which is, I should say, also important because it outlines strategic vision against specific targets. The next question that we asked was, okay, we now know your reality, but what would you like to focus on if you had more time? Let's imagine this case scenario. And then, of course, the answer was product discovery and product strategy. As Dennis already mentioned, it's a tip time. We want to make this presentation as useful as possible. And so I would like to share with you some small practical recommendations and advices on how can you persuade your manager to get resources for research. Imagine you ask your manager to free up some time for research. And then the answer is no. Try this. Make a meeting with him to answer your open questions about the customer. If he can answer all of them, that is good, but then you still need to validate those answers. If no, it will give you some ground, and next time it will be easier for you to get some time for research. Another thing that I can recommend whenever somebody tells you, actually, we don't have time for research, ask if we actually have time and resources to produce something meaningless, something that our users won't need. Like this, it will be easier for you to get some time for research. Let's move on. We also asked questions about what would you like to do less? And surprise, people would love to have less meetings, stakeholder management, team coordination, and reporting. As you can see, it proves one more time that people are spending way too much time on delivery instead of discovery. We also asked a question that gave us some meaningful insights, and the question was, How do you feel about your company? The best rating was given to the statement about understanding of the direction that product takes. As you can see, on a scale from 1 to 5, product managers gave an average rate of 4.0, which is pretty high, meaning that they can understand direction that is taken. This is really good. On the other hand, at the same time, you can see that question about decisions that are being data-driven was rated very low. It's 2.9. It just proves one more time a need of doing proper product discovery. Instead of taking assumptions, base your decisions on data. And here is an interest difference. We could also see that collaboration within the same team works much better than collaboration across different departments. Why is it so? And why does it matter? We want to give you a tip time here. You can give asynchronous updates, for example, write bi-weekly e-newsletters with new features, or you can create a new Slack channel and inform your stakeholders about all the new features. And like this, you will get a lot of nice outcomes. For example, you will have a higher degree of alignment and more potential for beneficial cooperation, and you will have less update meetings and less stress. To sum it up, what do these results tell us? I wanted to share with you some key takeaways from this outside-in survey. And you can see that first takeaway is that product managers don't have enough time to do research. And as a result, they base their decisions on not on data, but on assumptions. And you already learned how to overcome this and how to persuade your boss to do a proper product discovery. Second takeaway is that the biggest time wasters are coordinating activities and collaborating with other departments. Again, this can be solved by asynchronous updates via bi-weekly emails or updates in dedicated Slack channel. Now that you know all these tricks and how to overcome these problems, you can focus on something really important, like product discovery and your user needs. Thank you.
All right, cool, thanks. So I would like to tell you a little bit more of what we made out of this kind of information. And then we started within Project A and our portfolio companies, the initiative of so-called product school. Dennis, maybe you can come to the next thing. So what we see actually is that, and this is probably nothing mind-blowing here, but people transition into product management. I mean, like as Alex already said, they're coming from QA background, business background, tech background, but we even know people coming from event management background or background of an actor, for example, right, or customer service. So they're coming from all different parts. And what this also means is that they have some dedicated knowledge from one or the other side of this kind of like broad aspects of product management, but typically you don't really learn these kind of fields, what you still need as well, somewhere else. And this is also what we actually see in a lot of portfolio companies. So we see that, you know, there's a lot of people, and many people even ask me, like, Tamer, can I just like, I would like to transition into product management, or a product leader asked me, hey, there's this guy, doesn't make sense to put him into product management if he doesn't have any experience. And we see there's a lot of like smart people out there, young, very strong, thrown into the product management role. And then they, you know, like end up on trying to survive their day-to-day business. I mean, like they're just super busy, they're stressed out, they're just like not really trying to just like, stay on top of the curve instead of, you know, like really driving and changing and having the right time to actually build the right product that they need. And what we as well see, and Dennis mentioned this one already, is that understanding the facts of product management, the theory is extremely easy, right? So you can read about specs or how to conduct interviews and so on and so further. But on the one side, you have this issue of application. So it's extremely hard to just like put this one into a practice and create some kind of outcome. And you also don't have that much time and possibilities to train these kind of things. So this is just like not room for that one. And this is just like only one side. But the other side is that most organizations that we work in are also new to product management. So not only taking about your personally being a product manager and need to know about these kind of things, often I find many product managers say, I really don't know how to explain product management to my stakeholders, to my boss, to whoever, in order to make sure that I'm going to be able to do a good job, right? So this is going to add up. So it's very important for the people to have this kind of tips and tricks and details and this confidence for them in order to help them to grow in their product environment. And I think it's for product managers, first of all, very important to learn about the fundamentals. Like the theory behind it, but also, like putting it together in some kind of like tips and tricks environment. So when we're talking about the theory itself, it's, and this is something that we just like when we designed this product school, are struggling a lot in the beginning with. So to give you some kind of like context about that one. So when we started, we said like, okay, what do we want to tell the people? And we said like, okay, what do we actually do in product management? And we listed down all these kind of things and things that we do and apply on a day-to-day basis. And then we figured out that like most of the things we actually do are the application of different frameworks. And we figured out, and what we also see a lot in the day-to-day job of product managers is that they're just like using the framework because they came across that one without exactly knowing the principles behind it, and more trying to like follow this principle of the guidelines of that framework instead of just like really understanding what is behind that one, why do we do it, and how do we apply it. So we created a set of kind of like theory behind it, like, okay, what is the common ground between all these kind of methodologies that you use? And this is number one that we use as a didactic to, like give them this kind of like big picture and how these kind of things are interconnected. How is a product discovery connected to a strategy? And how can this kind of strategy being part of a task where you try to set up your organization? So this is like one part. The second part that we actually do is we need to make sure that people are actually applying the theory right away and give direct feedback, because this is one of the things that we understood is going to be like probably one of the best kind of learning techniques to, see how complicated it is in practice, and then seeing someone who can help you out with this kind of struggle that you have. And last but not least, you're going to have the simple tips and tricks that really helps you to get you forward in your day-to-day job. And we're still learning here there, like how to do it really, but this is like currently the approach that we take. And I think for the first kind of sessions, we got some good results out of that one. All right. So what would we imagine as a format? So on the one side, we have this kind of like, we limited it out to a 3 months training with 12 sessions. We thought a lot about like giving a curriculum that is fixed, but we understood that the theory or the topics that we discuss should be somehow aligned with the problems that you have in your day-to-day product management work. Otherwise, it's going to be an interesting show, but maybe nothing that you can use into your day-to-day life or create any impact out of that one. Of course, we use small groups, and beyond that one, we are trying out a couple of learning formats. So not just like going with like front sessions and homework, but trying, for example, exchanges, giving some content up front as recordings, providing some templates and these kind of things. All right. So what do we actually want to achieve? We don't want to make we want to make the product managers actually be able to master the skills, instead of, and this sounds simple, but it's extremely hard, instead of just like solving all problems that they come across. Because it's extremely hard even to define the scope of the work of a product manager. So I think by boiling this one down to the core principles, they probably also have a good argument to say like, okay, this is just like not only more urgent, but this is even more important for that one to solve as a problem right now. And ideally, they're going to be able to apply the right methodologies. And as I said, getting some kind of like confidence to apply new methodologies, implement it in a company, and having some kind of like background to deal with it once it's unclear, because this kind of trying new methodologies, especially in product management, is something that other people, other stakeholders or your management will take a look at, and see actually if you succeed with that one, and just like stop it once it doesn't work, or once it hasn't been applied in a very good way. And last but not least, our goal is not to make the best product managers, but to help them building the best products. And I think this is like something that we try to take as an element for, or as a principle for the course design we're creating. All right, so creating this kind of areas has been quite a journey, because of course you probably know about product management, and you all heard about Marty Kagan and this kind of structure of product discovery, delivery, product strategy, and product organization. But we found this one a little bit too methodology driven. I mean, like this dual track agile kind of approach assumes a Scrum or an agile process that you're running behind. And there's a couple of things that are bound to this one. So you probably don't even need to have a strategy to give the company a direction. So a well-designed opportunistic behavior can also lead you as a company to some kind of success. So this is why we try to really get rid of all this kind of clutter and noise around it and boil it down to the really actual thing that we want to do. And this is like more or less the couple of disciplines that we came up with. So first of all, there is generating insights that is the center or the starting point for everything. So what we try to uncover here in this kind of session then is, to understanding real user needs. How do you really get into the core of like understanding your users and deriving solutions out of that one? Then like applying some techniques like user research or interviewing techniques, analyzing quantitative data, doing some market research or competitor analysis, usability testing, and last but not least, trying to learn about how to interpret this kind of research result findings in order to apply it at, for example, the next roadmap that you're creating, the next strategy that you're working on, or generating or getting the knowledge in order to build a better product in the end. The big second part that we're just like working on, and this is like the operational axis as you can see it, which contains in our point of view between the generating insights and the creating of the product itself. And this is where we are want to focus more on this conceptualization and testing of user experiences. Like, how do you figure out that the broad idea that you have in your head is actually something valuable and doable and something strong that you can deliver to the customer? But not only that one, I think there's a big technical aspects to that one. And we heard in many other talks that like the topic of a technical debt is still a big problem. So we also want product managers to understand what their requests will create in terms of a technical implication. What will this kind of result in? And coming up with some basic technical concept and starting to see and think in systems and data and processes is quite helpful there. And then, like some things like how to write a proper spec. Most people just like don't know it. They just like spend, and this is like very sad to hear. I mean, like most people just like spend 5-10 minutes for writing down a spec that keeps a developer busy for a week. And it happens quite often and way too often for many product teams that this specification is just like not being done well. So they just like waste a lot of time that you have in your hand just because you're busy, right? And doing it in a proper way maybe even helps you to, while writing it, prevent this kind of issue. Of course, we have backlog management, giving feedbacks, pitching projects, and so on and so further. All right. Then, and I think this is also something where a lot of product teams are struggling with, but I see there's a big like emphasis on this topic, and this means like giving a direction, which means like giving the company a direction, giving the product teams a direction, and giving everyone personal direction by applying some kind of questions about what is the vision and the strategy, or where's the market actually developing in? How do you do planning and road mapping, and how do you steer your goals within this kind of company? All right. Last but not least, I think this is also something that especially like in growth companies where teams are changing, where people are changing a lot, especially in the early days, it's getting more and more important. And this is like the way of how you design actually the collaboration. How do you can not just like think about making your product team work, but you need to make your product team work within an organization in terms of how do you manage the stakeholders? How can you, how can they gonna be involved and included in this product creation process? How can you find a good personal organization? How can you not be too busy, and these kind of things. So this is like what we teach in this kind of field. All right. So we are currently fairly new with this one. So we have our first round of product school already like currently in the process. So we're currently working together with the amazing team from Casavo, who was really an amazing team. And I think we're having a lot of fun, as you probably can see here in this picture, on, trying out formats and educating, and discussing and playing around with some kind of like things and thoughts and knowledge. And I'm just like not saying that we just like know how to do it. I think it's important when you learn and teach about that one is to bounce ideas and grasp directions and possibilities. So it's kind of a back and forth mechanism that then helps to actually grow. All right. Thank you very much. I think we still have a couple of times for Q&A session. So I'm happy to jump into to answer some questions, and then afterwards, of course, we still have the possibility to jump into Wonder, and I think hopefully you've been there as well to get some more detailed things. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so you can also request the mic if you want to say something. So this would be.
Where do you do that again, Tama? Requesting the mic?
I think for the audience, they have this button which says request the mic. I'm not sure. I don't see it right now on my screen, so I can't tell you where it is exactly. There was a question of where can we find information about the school and the sessions. And I think the easiest is to write one of us an email, and we're happy to share some of our insights and thoughts. Yeah, there's also one message. It says like most of the things are extremely simple, but as we said already, there's a lot of things that are extremely hard in the application, and there's a couple of questions that like will probably get you out of that one. So we got the first one who was requesting the mic. So Eren Filiba. All right. Hi, Eren. The mic is yours. Hey.
Hi.
Hello.
You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So my question is regarding the school. So like you guys mentioned, product management is easy on paper, but as you go through the kitchen, it gets more trickier and trickier, and it's the nuances make it actually more interesting and difficult at the same time.
Yeah.
So my question is rather like, so how do you balance the school being like a very academic concept? How do you put in the application side of things into the program?
Yeah, so currently we're running it like that one, that we have a session where we are actually doing the theory and backing up the theory and asking some kind of dedicated questions in order to get some kind of mind shifts and doing some small little trainings. And then people will get some kind of like homework to actually work on some things. And afterwards, we're going to review together this one for around 1 hour, where we actually go through the little details and the results of that homework in order to validate if this is really the right thing that they've did, and what they can do better. And typically, this is just like this kind of little hints that helps you to see things differently. So one of the things that we, for example, asked in the first session is, what are you actually working on? This was the first question. And most people tell me about what features they're going to create. Yeah. But what I think is extremely important to always answer these kind of questions from a user perspective. So what's going to be the value add for the user from that term? So I don't care if you build this kind of feature A or B. I care if you really understood if that feature that you're creating creates something and you know about it. And this is where even there starts this thought process of, oh yes, fuck, I need to think about it. And while applying this one over time, you suddenly get to this kind of like habit of doing this one. So this is like what we're trying to do in this kind of thing. We want to try out some new formats, to be honest, to put the theory more into a asynchronous kind of documentation format. So rather have like, let's say, half an hour podcast that you can listen to up front, and then like taking more time to actually work on specific fields. We're currently doing it with one round where we, for example, right now are reviewing old research documents and try to extract all the research findings that we're going to have and see how other people are actually doing it. Because I think there's a big value if, you know, like, I mean, like, how often have you seen someone else writing a spec, or how often have you seen someone really thinking about this detail? You probably, at least I never did that often. And I loved it so much to see actually how, for example, Dennis is doing a competitor research, right? So like, wow, cool. I never thought about this approach. This is amazing. It's a super shortcut. And then suddenly it all makes sense, and then you can apply it, and then you know that you're in the right path.
Yeah, one concept that I've come across is actually the concept stolen from developers is pair product management, which is like writing specs together or something like that. Yeah,
exactly. This is something that we want to replicate in some kind of way where you can really do something in that moment. You need to do it, and this is like what we're trying to do. I think we see a lot of value out of that one. And it's funny to see that the development area always seems to be like a couple of steps up front, and with some kind of like very good methodology. So it's a lot to take out of it.
Right. Thank you for the talk.
Thank you.